Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to talk about all things ruler, keeping track of the rulers you have, storing the rulers you have, and also kind of maybe my tips and tricks for how I've decided to organize and store all of my rulers. I've got a whole bunch of ideas to share with you today, and so let's get started. Okay, like you probably do, I have a lot of rulers. And when I first started quilting, I wasn't really into specialty rulers that much. I just used the plain regular rulers. But as I've quilted more and more over the years and done different projects with different companies, I've accumulated quite a vast collection of rulers. And it was probably about a year ago that I decided I've got to get this under control. I had rulers everywhere. And when I needed to use a specific ruler, I didn't know where it was. And I also ended up purchasing rulers that I had already had in my stash. So I really started to get my rulers under control about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. And then again, when we moved recently, I decided to really get them organized. Now, I have grouped my rulers into 3 different categories to make it easier for me to kind of keep track and sort and organize them. And the first category are just the standard rulers. And my standard rulers are just rectangles and squares that I use all the time for measuring and for cutting, and for trimming up blocks, for cutting yardage off of bolts. And so those are my standard rulers. The next category of rulers that I have are my utility rulers. And these are rulers that I use all the time to make blocks that I make all the time. And those types of rulers include rulers that help me cut strips, rulers that help me cut flying geese, rulers that help me do half square triangles and easy corner triangles, and just kind of a few other extras that I've lumped into that category. I'll go over those with you in just a little bit. And then my third category of rulers is the specialty rulers category. And these are rulers that I use for log cabins, hexagons, pineapple blocks, rulers that just have a specific purpose and really aren't used in constructing other blocks. They just construct the specialty blocks themselves. I also have a wide collection of templates. And so how I define a template as separate from a ruler is a template is just something that I trace around to make a shape. So I've also got templates, and I'll kind of talk about those here today. The other thing I wanted to talk about was ruler storage. And I do have 3 different ruler storage racks that you can see right here. This small one I actually throw in my bag when I travel. It's great when I'm at a retreat to be able to just stand up a few rulers right at my sewing station that I'm going to use. And so I don't use this one a lot when I'm at home. I actually have when I'm doing a specific project, but this one I usually use for travel. And these 2 others that you see, I have kind of my most frequently used rulers on these ruler stands. And this one, if I'm cutting out a project, will stay on this work table so that I can grab what I need. And this one is just on a shelf in another part of the room, so I can run over and grab it whenever I need it. I have a drawer on this cutting table that I'll show you in a little bit that I keep all of my square rulers in. And as I was organizing everything after we moved, it just felt like that was a great place to put all of the square rulers that I use to trim up blocks. They're just at the end of this table. I can pull out the drawer, and I've got all the different sizes of squares in that drawer. I also have a couple other rulers in there just because that was where they fit the best. I also have this box, and this is primarily templates and a couple rulers that are specialty rulers. And then I have a large box. And this is where the bulk of my rulers stay that I don't use on a really regular basis. And I just have this box stored in a closet and it's labeled. So, but I went a step further and I actually made a list of a ruler inventory list. And so I have in this list, I just did a table, every single ruler that I have, the shape, the measurement, and the storage location. So if I'm looking for something, I know what category it goes in, whether it's one of my standard rulers, rectangles and squares, or if it's a utility ruler that I mentioned that makes pieces that make up standard blocks, or if it's a specialty ruler. And I've got all of my different brands, sizes, and in the third column, I have where it's stored. It's stored on the work table, or it's stored in the drawer, or it's stored in the bin, or it's stored in a cupboard. So I have just an easy way to find out where anything is stored at any time. I've got a couple new rulers in here that I haven't figured out where they're going to be stored yet. So they are in my inventory sheet, and for storage location I just put new, which means I need to decide. And I save this in a computer so that I can, edit and adjust it as necessary. So I'm going to show you a couple other things that I use to store rulers, and I'll show you that drawer that I talked about, and we'll get going with that. Okay, I went over and grabbed a couple other storage containers that I used, and they make great options. This is just a bin from IKEA. You can actually get a little attachment for it and hang it on the wall or on the side of a cabinet, but I just have it on my cabinet, and it has some pretty frequently used rulers in here. So I talk a lot in my videos about the small simple folded corners ruler, and I use that almost every day. So it's, right here on my cutting table. But there is a larger version of that ruler, and I still use it quite a bit. So it's in this bin. The bin is just things that I use pretty frequently, so I don't want to have to go into the closet and open up a plastic box. So I kind of know in general what rulers are here, but again, that list really helps. One of my specialty rulers, the 8-inch log cabin trim tool, is in here because I love log cabin blocks and I make them a lot. So even though it's a specialty ruler, it is in here because of the frequency which I use it. The other thing I wanted to show you right now was just this big bin that I use, and I just have it on the floor here in the sewing room, but to me it's the best way to store these tall rulers. I've got my 8.5-inch by 24. I've got a couple of those, actually 3. One of them's 8 by 24, and the other 2 are 8.5 by 24.5. And I've got a ruler that cuts fat quarters into different sizes, and then this really odd-shaped 15-degree triangle ruler. But for these large rulers, I just really like having them in this bin. That way I don't have to worry about finding a shelf, using valuable shelf space to store them, or even finding a shelf that's wide enough for them. So this has been a great option for me to store these larger size rulers. Okay, I'm going to walk you over and show you the drawer that I use to store some of my square rulers. Okay, as I mentioned, I do have a lot of square rulers. I have those on my ruler inventory sheet, and I have anywhere from 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 8, all the way up to some larger sizes. And when I was reorganizing everything when we moved, I realized this drawer on the cabinet was a great place to keep those square rulers. The largest square ruler that I have that fits in the drawer is my 12.5 by 12.5. But the rest of them, I've just got them kind of lined up by size. So if I'm making a 5-inch block, I can grab my 5-inch ruler and use it to square it up. And so I've just got them all in here by size, some smaller ones. I mentioned earlier I have this just kind of an odd shaped ruler, and I was worried about this getting messed up or bent or broken, and it was a good fit to put it in the drawer. So, and then I also have, this is a ruler that I have a couple extras of, and so I stuck them in here too. But the drawer has just, if you have drawers in your sewing room, a drawer is a great system to use to store rulers. I do have a couple of larger square rulers on my list, a 15 by 15 and a 16.5 by 16.5, and I keep those in the closet. But just wanted to show you this drawer because a lot of people have dressers or drawer systems in their sewing rooms, and a drawer is also a great option for storing your rulers. Okay, and finally, I wanted to show you one more thing. I keep all of my ruler directions in a file folder that's actually, I have a file drawer in this table, and I keep extra patterns and patterns separated by category, you know, Christmas patterns, jelly roll patterns. I have a whole bunch of different labels. But one of my file folders just says ruler instructions. And so whenever I purchase a ruler or get a ruler, I put the instructions in this folder, and so that I have access to them whenever I need them. And you can tell I've got all of them right here, because a lot of these rulers, if you don't have the instructions, you are probably not going to be able to figure out how to use it to the most of its ability. You might know some of it, but this has just been super helpful for me to have all of the ruler instructions right here in one folder. And I know I've talked to other quilters who actually take these out and put them in a notebook and store them on a shelf, and they use plastic page protectors, and I feel like that's a great idea too. I just happen to have the filing cabinet drawer right there, and so for me this is a great option just because I can just grab it and pull it out of the file. But definitely something that you want to think about is keeping all of your ruler instructions in one place so that you have easy access to them. It's just not practical to keep them with the ruler all the time, especially if you're using a stand-up ruler storage system, or in my old house I had a pegboard for some of my rulers, and there just was really no way to keep the instructions with the rulers using those type of storage systems. I guess if you're keeping rulers in plastic boxes, you could keep the paperwork in there with them, but it just seemed to make it more cluttered, and it just seemed to me to be an easier option to have all of the ruler paperwork and instructions in one place. Okay, I hope this little discussion on ruler storage and ruler inventory, keeping track of your rulers, has been helpful. I know it's been really helpful for me to know exactly what I have and where it's at, so I don't make a duplicate purchase, and so that I also don't spend valuable time looking for a ruler that I know I have. I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thanks so much for stopping by.